WoW's writers have lost the plot. Oh no, no time to care. Okay, so Bellular, talk a little bit about the plot here and everything that's going down. I will say, comparatively speaking, I think Midnight's lore has been better than the last couple expansions. I think it's heading in the right direction. It's doing better. One thing that I complained about a little bit about the lore recently is I felt like it was a little bit rushed, a little bit fast. Like, we have centuries and decades long issues between some of these elf factions, and all of a sudden they reunited just by, doing a little bit of finger popping in the background. Like, it was real quick. All of a sudden they forgot all the issues and, hey, let's unite. Okay, that's fine. I do feel like the storyline for Midnight moved a little bit fast. It did. But for the most part, I think it's been better than what we've recently been getting. But let's see what the complaints are here from Bellular and why the WoW writers have lost the plot here.
Okay, let's engage with the discourse. So after the Dawn finale, I do actually think something is deeply wrong with how WoW is telling its stories. At least some of its stories, anyway. And I think you know the ones. It's the ones that scream, we need to get to the next part of the story really quick, let's speedrun this thing. That's the kind of thing that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. It happened during Shadowlands, and of course it famously happened a lot during Battle for Azeroth.
Well, Shadowlands was a bit different, because Shadowlands, we couldn't tell the story was moving quick. We just had no idea what the fuck was going on. It's like, where is this story going? We were just blind the whole time. It didn't feel like we were moving fast. It just felt like we were moving blindly. Like, the jailer just kept talking about, coming, and weird shit is going to come, and I don't know what, and we have to, unite the cosmos. I don't know what the fuck I still don't know what the fuck he was talking about. But anyways, that was a different issue. I feel like Midnight, I get what's going on. Obviously, Xal'atath's chasing immortality, void and light, it all makes sense, but it just moved really quick. I was like, oh, damn, okay, the elves are united. Oh, okay, Xal'atath already did her thing, and now she went into the planet. All right, now what? Yeah, now we're kind of on pause looking at maybe the Last Titan lore coming up soon, because it feels like Midnight's lore is already done.
During Shadowlands, and of course it famously happened a lot during Battle for Azeroth. And I think the evidence does speak for itself here. The majority of people talking about Midnight's endgame campaign, and especially some of the latter chapters, seem to hate it. And I do see people who do like it, but all too often, it feels like it's turned into some tribalism style, people running defense for it, people attacking it. So today, I'm going to deconstruct it, and I'm going to fix it. And not just that one scene, but Blizzard's whole recent approach. Now, the first thing I would do is get everyone in their writing team to watch The Matrix. And not because it's a movie full of high-key aura farming. It's a great movie. Though that is actually another problem for WoW too, but not one we'll tackle today. The real reason why is actually because of a book. It's a book called Simulacra and Simulation. It was such an inspiration for The Matrix that they actually made it required reading for all of the cast, and if the author were still alive today, he'd understand exactly what WoW's problem is. I mean, I can't speak for the dead, and he probably wouldn't end up as a WoW player. But the point is that for WoW, it's a bit more complicated than saying, Lamau, skill issue, just write better. We're all living in a form of the Matrix right now. And I obviously don't mean that in the very cringe Andrew Tate sense. No, today we're talking about Jean Baudrillard and what he called a hyperreality. And what the Wachowskis did with the Matrix is make that hyperreality look really goddamn cool and give us a lot of Keanu. But the idea, right?
Seriously, Matrix, I wasn't expecting Matrix references today. Yeah, the 0-1s. But that was really aura farming before aura farming was a thing. I mean, seriously, the dodging of the stopping of the bullets, all that shit. Man, that was a great movie. I feel like I got to rewatch The Matrix now.
Is that the WoW experience is not just the game itself. It's also everything else as well. It's the Reddit posts, it's what content creators post about data mining, and even what Blizzard
reactions to the content that they're posting, true.
Promises us beforehand. And that last part is extremely important because this is the World Soul Saga. Blizzard promised us a hell of a lot. So, WoW here, the actual game that you buy and play, that is the reality, right? But it's not the only thing we engage with. What we engage with is the hyper-reality of World of Warcraft. That means the version with all of the extra baggage that I talked about.
True.
Content creators, data mining, comments, all of those things. And Blizzard needs to think about that version too, because that's actually the one that ends up mattering the most here. And that means they need to understand what we're going to see in data mining. It means they need to be careful with what they tell us is going to happen. And
I don't know if you guys ever noticed during the news segment, I don't click on any of these. I don't want the spoilers. I feel like it ruins the game. I don't want to know what the fuck happens and see the cutscenes before I actually get to them in the game. I'm totally like as spoiler free as you can be on the internet these days, but I basically stay spoiler free. I'm like, let me just see it in the game. I don't need it to be data mined and then told to me and then fed to me. I personally just always avoid these articles.
Even means understanding what we expect, because that does matter. And to fix that, well, there's one more thing. You see, Jean Baudrillard was a pretty smart fella, and he had another idea. And it's an idea that really explains how WoW feels. And it's called the non-event. I mean, does that just not kind of click with how some of WoW was felt to experience?
Historical
Basically,
event with
the
little to no
non-event is
impact.
when things happen so fast, and there's so much noise around all of it, that we don't actually get to sit and absorb the actual thing that happens.
Yeah, it's true. It totally is, and he's making a great point. Midnight does feel that way because how long was the Sunwell, the Voidwell? It feels like it became the Voidwell for like a week. I don't even know like time wise how long that lasted, but it was like, oh, now the dawn, like the Sunwell, this historical, big piece of WoW lore has been tainted and turned into the Voidwell, and then it felt like a week later it was the Dawnwell. And I'm like, well, that was short lived. And what did we just threw some items into that thing? Somebody took a light shit in it, and now it's the Dawnwell. It really did feel like insignificant in terms of how long that thing stayed as the Voidwell. It wasn't very long, so it just felt like non-impactful. Like, okay, Xalatet did this crazy thing to the Sunwell. It's been destroyed. Oh, well, it's fine now, actually. We're good. We threw some items into it, and now it's been purified. Yeah, it did feel like a non-item, definitely. And it's supposed to be a big moment, but it had really no impact.
We don't get to engage with just the reality itself. No, what we're engaging with is...
That's a great... Ms. Vamps in the chat says, Sunwell, Voidwell, Dawnwell, oh well. Basically, that's what happened.
Is the constant hyperreality. Have you ever wondered why old movies, TV shows, and games seem to be remembered better? Well, it's often because new things fall under what we would here call non-events, where the world we live in is so fast and we chew them up and we spit them out pretty much in a week at most. And it's all very, very fast-paced. I mean, in many cases, we're almost finished with a story before it even happens, and then we're immediately moving on to whatever's next.
Yep.
Nothing has time to settle. Now, we've been talking about the World Soul Saga for years. We've been talking about what elf reunification would mean since whenever Blizzard mentioned that. We've been talking about the Dawnwell since it was data mined months ago, and the connections that it would all have to the World Soul. Light versus void, and everything that entails. All of this wider context is absorbed insanely fast, well before the game even comes out.
Right.
Blizzard might not literally understand this, but they can definitely feel it. And I think that is a big part of the problem. And with that said, it is now time for the prescriptions. Stop speedrunning your story. Every patch ends with an obvious lead-in to the next patch. And while that is in many ways a good thing, you do want some continuity and some foreshadowing, but it often means the main story gets no time to breathe before it's all resolved and we're pushed over to the next thing.
It does. It kind of goes with the new patch cadence and how quickly these expansions are happening, right? We're getting faster expansions as part of the World Soul Saga and everything else, but a side effect of that is, they got to run quicker through the story. I mean, like everyone was saying it, like everything Chris Metzen said Midnight was going to be, reunification of the elves, and oh no, we take an L to Xalatet and everything else. That's all happened. We're about to get the 0.5 patch this week, but we're done with this entire story that was laid out for us for Midnight. So now we're kind of like, oh, well, that was quick. No, they're kind of easy too. What happens now? What's going on? I guess we're gonna go do some Amani Troll stuff as a side thing, if I had to guess. Point 1 will be an Amani Troll side story, and then point 2 will be, okay, back to the main story. We're going to get ready to go to Northrend. Last Titan shit starting to be, get started, and then we'll head into the Last Titan expansion. But yeah, everything that the Midnight story was supposed to be was like a couple weeks. That's about it. Okay, we're done. Now what?
The Sunwell is attacked, it goes dark, and it's fixed within just a few quests. We're reminded of Aethys and Varys' hatred for each other before the raid, and next week they're signing a compact.
Yeah, they're probably fucking
compact
too.
Really might be the perfect term for this whole thing, honestly. It just feels so compressed. Then we've got the Night Elves taking no convincing to show up. I mean, just think about the council of what do we do with the one ring of power? And they devolve into arguments and a whole big thing before they work out what to do with the Fellowship.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the Fellowship, imagine freaking Lord of the Rings. Like, one reason why the moment the ring falls into the fires of Mordor is such a big moment is because, damn it, you've just watched a 9-hour movie to get there. They took forever. So many setbacks, so many big moments, all this shit happening. I mean, it would almost be like you're promised this 9-hour movie and the ring gets destroyed in the first hour. You would be sitting there, first of all, the destruction of the ring would be much less impactful because it just happens so quickly. And second of all, you would be standing there looking around like, okay, do I continue with this movie? Do I continue playing this game? Because it feels like the story's over. Feels like this shit just happened real quick. So yeah, I totally agree with a lot of the points he's making. The speed of it doesn't mean the story's bad, but the speed at which it was told was kind of quick.
Oh no, it is lightning fast whenever we go to visit the Night Elves. And when you actually look at Chandris's dialogue, honestly, it's like a summarized wiki page for new players instead of her as an actual character, one who has lived through a life of experience, talking to you in her unique voice. Romath and Umbric, I will say, feel like a decent part of the story, and that's because they at least got to be around in the leveling campaign. But still, Umbric, major member of the Alliance, gets a new Void Elf.
We have had this story going since Dragonflight. It's longer than 9 hours. It's 4 years. The story, yes, there are like tethers to the story that have gone back that far. We still haven't even seen Iridikron. He's part of the story, and he's probably not shown up to the Last Titan. Yes, there were like little, things laid out for the story, but in terms of Midnight and its own story, the Sunwell was the major part of it, and it feels like the Sunwell part of it is done. Like, we're literally in Silvermoon now for no real reason. The Sunwell thing is over. Now it's like, okay, what do we do next? Yeah, I agree. There's parts of the story that have been laid out, but that's like saying the two towers, right? And the second movie for Lord of the Rings, they defeat Sauron, or not Sauron. They go and capture the two towers like right away. It's over. And then the rest of the movie, you're waiting for something else. Like, the main plot of this piece of the story feels like it was told very quickly. Yes, the overall story's not over yet. We know that. That doesn't end until the end of The Last Titan.
Embassy in the middle of Silvermoon. And no one bats an eye. There's not much talk about it, even though it's a major geopolitical event in the world. In the quest text, we do actually see that everyone is still on edge, and the elves very much think of it as if they are in a temporary truce. There's actually lots of future setup in those lines of dialogue, some of them the spoken ones, and others just when you right-click at an NPC. But the thing is, that setup is just that. It's setup. It doesn't feel like much is actually happening now. We all feel, from Blizzard's usual kind of pacing, that this is just done, dusted, and, well, it's time to move on to the next thing. Blizzard are basically caught up in the blistering pace of the non-event. Just like how the Marvel movies ended up doing that with their endless post-credit scenes, and how it got to the stage where, even though all the Marvel things were connected to each other, there was a lot of audience fatigue and people just stopped giving a shit. Now, we can all see the
Marvel's also a great example. The Thanos buildup was pretty damn long. I mean, he was there all along. He was doing his thing. We knew the Infinity Stones being collected was a major plot line that was lasting for a while, which is why even the fight with Thanos, it happened twice. That shit was 2 times. We got 2 movies to defeat Thanos. So definitely his defeat felt very impactful. Romath and Umbric need to go on a date already? Yeah, they probably should. Saint pre-watch, unbelievable. The pre-watching, unreal. I mean, what the fuck do I have time to pre-watch this shit? Unreal, these freaking, it's assaults at this point of pre-watches.
Utility of those post-credit scenes way back when they were a new, fresh thing, but
at work,
now,
yeah, true.
Well, the credits aren't even over, and your attention is already on whatever the next thing is. And it's similar enough with Blizzard. We're rushed from announcement to announcement, from patch to patch, and nothing gets to stay around long enough to feel like it matters. Now let's compare that to Mists of Pandaria, where we had the faction conflict rage fresh in every patch right up until the end. It was actually focused. It was one main idea lasting through a whole expansion. Yeah. But nowadays, and I'd say especially ever since Battle for Azeroth, it feels like we just tick off a handful of plot points in every single patch and then move on to the next. So to help fix WoW's issues, I would get Blizzard to slow down. That's how they escape the Matrix. Commit to an arc, commit to a big story, and nail it. The latter part is the important one, because it could even have been like that in Midnight. We could have had the elves at each other's throats for a while, maybe even through another major patch. They could have disagreed with each other about how to heal the Darkwell. All expansion, this stuff could have been the focus. It could have been mined for all of its delicious ore. But it feels like we've rushed through.
Yeah, I definitely think there's enough there for this story to have been the entire expansion. The Sunwell to the Voidwell to the Dawnwell, like that could have easily been the entirety of this expansion. And then Zalateth, Mommy Zally goes into the ground, and then where's she ending up in Northrend? Bam, we're going to the Last Titan. And it would have definitely felt more impactful. Like us purifying the well would have been the end of expansion big moment, and we would have been doing this for like a year and whatever months. But instead, we did it all in the first patch. So yeah, and it would have felt more impactful the other way around.
Just the Dawnwell cinematic hasn't really rang true to people. Maybe it
Calm
would
your
have
tits, yeah.
if it was at the end of this expansion, where it would have felt earned. But also, let's be real. That cutscene is itself something that needs fixing, because it's indicative of a far larger problem. Blizz, you need to cut out the sugar. This saccharine power of friendship stuff seriously needs to end. It already felt forced to the Dragonflights, and the big Dragonflight cast members were literally all close family. But with these elves, it's just obviously fake feeling. The Night Elves barely have any ties to the story whatsoever. They're there begrudgingly to stop the Darkwell from threatening the world. Yet Liadrin gives this pithy line about the moon meeting the sun. We see the five elves framed in this triumphant shot, where only Liadrin and Umbric have had any major involvement in this story. It's this weird, sugary, sweet ending that cynically is supposed to make you have happy good feels. That's supposed to end with an orchestral swell that tells you, the viewer, ooh, look at that, it's great. It's a situation where the music and the language of cinema often feels closer to being a laugh track, just telling the audience kind of what to do, rather than something that's really reinforcing the themes as they have been experienced by players as we go through the story. That's why that hero shot of the five of them just doesn't feel...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this did feel kind of, I think this moment would have felt cooler if it had taken longer to get here. If we had seen some infighting, some shit going down, maybe, we realize actually the Void Elves are crazy, we don't want to deal with them, / now we do want to deal with, like, a bunch of back and forth over the entirety of the expansion would have made this moment better. Instead, yeah, it did just feel like, well, yeah, I mean, they asked for help and everybody came together. That's it.
Feel right. But I'd still say...
all they had to do was ask to end years and decades and centuries of racist hate against each other. Well, it just had to ask to be friends, and they would have been friends.
Even if it was earned, and even if it did landed, I would still want a different tone to this. And that's because the Darkwell fixes the Blood Elves. And I think that's a huge mistake. And not just for the role players, but for everyone. So let's go back a little. What made you pick a race when you started World of Warcraft? For some, it was purely utility, like going troll because of their berserking ability.
No,
but for a whole lot of
sure.
us, it was because that race and their story, their theme, was compelling.
Yeah.
The Blood Elves were certainly more, air quotes, normal than most Horde races, but they were still brutal and tragic outsiders. Now, we just don't have those stories to connect to. They've brushed off their past, and they have become generic elves. There's still obviously an underbelly to their society. We see a little bit of that, yes. But now that they've accepted the Void Elves, who's to say that the fell smugglers of Murder Row aren't next? Here's how I would fix it. It's fairly simple. It's learning to write people integrating their shadows. That's very different to what Blizzard have done, and when I say shadow, I mean that in the Jungian sense. So instead of the Blood Elves trying to fix themselves, they should accept what they are, instead of healing the Darkwell to the friendship-powered Dawnwell that seems to give them all of the benefits but none of the downsides.
Right.
Maybe they could have nuked it. In Midnight, they never mentioned that when Arthas corrupted the Sunwell, Kil'thas fixed it by literally destroying it. Then in the Burning Crusade, it was fixed by Muru's sacrifice. Now that it's been corrupted again, well, blowing up the Darkwell would have been a real Blood Elf thing to do. They
Imagine. Yeah, that would have been, I would have been dropping like a giant mana bomb in it or something. Yeah. Could have been the way they went about it. And definitely like another good example is previously how the Sunwell was dealt with when when Arthas showed up and, basically desanctified it, bringing about Kel'Thuzad and everything from it. Yeah, it took a lot to bring that thing back. Destruction of an entire Naru eventually to purify it. And then this time around, we just put like old shoes and a seed in it or something, some friendship items, and it's been purified. Definitely, it feels like it took a lot less to get there and made the whole thing feel less big. Nuke the well. Yeah, nuke the well. Drop a mana bomb. Get them goblins back on there. Jaina knows all about that.
go hard. Now, the modern Blood Elves hate Kil'thas, but they would have to accept that he was part of their history. He's even the guy that named them Blood Elves in the first place. Following in his footsteps in this one way would honor their legacy as a radical people, one consistently backed up against the brink in a hard situation. It would still have them doing an edgy thing that would be controversial.
Right.
But this time, they wouldn't be sacrificing it. They wouldn't be blowing it up just to save themselves. They would be doing it to save Azeroth. That would preserve who Blood Elves actually are.
True.
Now, the Night Elves would massively respect the seriousness of it, right? Because the Night Elves are deeply suspicious of the Wells. They've seen all the bad that's came with them. So if the Blood Elves were to go for that radical of a solution, you can actually see the Night Elves respecting them, even if it is through the most gritted of teeth. And if that happened, it would open up space for Astalor, a real edgy Blood Elf in the future. And remember, he's a Blood Elf who is searching for sources of power that would even tie the major gameplay of a big new feature into the narrative.
Is he a Blood Elf, though? Is he a Blood Elf? Or is he a Dreadlord? Yeah. There's some weird shit going on here. Very Castle Nathria-esque aesthetic, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. He could be a Blood Elf, but he could also be working with the Dreadlords. I just think there's some kind of freaking weird connection here.
Whereas, of course, thus far, Prey is there, completely disconnected from the launch day experience. And that is a problem. Even if Blizzard was to fold Astalor back into the plot in 2 patches' time, it would still be a problem now because of the story as we've actually experienced it and the game they've actually shipped. And had the Blood Elves gone with a radical, maybe controversial solution, it would leave a scar to really remember the Sunwell by. We would finally have some stakes. And on that topic, we need to talk about stakes. This part's simple. Blizzard needs stakes. Stakes that are actually taken seriously and dwelled on. Because right now, it seems Blizzard uses big stakes as a rally cry, as a point of marketing. But they don't actually dwell on those stakes inside the actual game. As an example, the Darkwell obliterated the Light's Vanguard, and they're instantly forgotten. It's insane.
Kind of true, yeah.
The power of friendship and forgiveness didn't even wait until the bodies were cold. No, the survivors, cursed by the darkness, were totally healed after we beat up Lura. Silvermoon was, in-game and in any story that we've seen, completely unaffected by any of this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then there's our main villain. It's hard to take Xal'atath's threats seriously when she won't reveal her actual goal. Now, we've got a motive, but we have no idea how she plans to accomplish it.
She also doesn't really fuck anybody up. Like, she just always kind of leaves. She fucks around a lot. Now, she did stab Illyria in the back, right? So that was kind of like Xal'atath got some edge to her now, right? But for the most part, like, everybody we've kind of seen around Xal'atath just dies because she leaves them to die, rather than kind of killing them herself. We did see her kill that one ethereal guy, right, who came to pray to her. But, there hasn't been, like, any major lore character deaths, because I don't even think Illyria's dead. I actually think Illyria's going to be all right. If I had to put money on it, I would say Illyria is going to be just fine. It's we. I don't know how she's going to survive that, but I think she's going to survive it. And then Sylvanas shows up, and Xal'atath just kind of does a little dodgy boy, and then says, "Oh, didn't know you were showing up. All right, I'm gonna dip out. Fuck out. See you later." So yeah, she hasn't really felt as threatening lately. She just seems to kind of be like, "Oh, I got more planning to do. I'll see you later." That just feels like how it's been. Now maybe she's going to become more threatening in the next expansion, but lately she just felt like, oh, she doesn't really take us seriously. She's just going to keep going doing her thing.
I mean, we have theories.
She did blow up Dalaran. Yes, she did. And in that moment, she felt very threatening. I agree with that. It just feels like the threat has kind of ramped down a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm like wrong to feel this way. I just feel like she started out very threatening. Remember when she did a little slithery boy? She transformed as she was talking to Illyria and she was doing. But since then, it just feels like, well, she hasn't been as big of a threat lately. Like it doesn't feel like if you interact with Xal'atath or you cross paths with, you're gonna die. Just seems she's probably gonna let you go because she doesn't think you're that important.
Loads of theories, and ones that I think are basically bang on true. But the thing is that to most players who just take the game as they see it when they play it, well, their experience is that she vague posts and then exits scene. And what makes that worse is the actual fight that precedes the cinematic. Number one, it is a goddamn awesome fight.
That's a cool fight.
Encounter designers are cooking, and we've all been loving it. Now that being said, Lura's dialogue is all about some sort of nondescript end happening. And the dungeon journal for Lura's final phase says, "Time is up. Can you end the ending itself?" Now, I don't even know if whoever wrote that actually knew what it means or how it actually related to the story that we got. Because without any context, it is a totally empty threat. Now, I'm not saying we need to blow up more cities or start killing main characters on screen, but Blizzard needs to give us time.
By the way, if you remember when she blew up Dalaran, I mean, we witnessed Khadgar supposedly die. Like, she felt very threatening, but then Khadgar comes back. He's actually okay. Illyria stabbed. She's probably coming back. She's probably okay. I mean, who has she really killed? I don't think she's really killed anybody. Maybe she's just like, well, the Void's going to kill them all anyway, so I don't really need to deal with that. But yeah, like in this moment, she felt extremely threatening. Since then, all of the threateningness of it all has kind of dissipated.
To sit with threats and consequences. Whenever Lura says something like that about the end, we need to truly believe that it is the end. Now, do you know where they did that? And they pulled it off credibly? The Argus fight. It truly did feel like, well, creation could be ended. And I think that's one of the reasons why it landed so hard, both from a gameplay perspective and a narrative perspective. Whereas unfortunately, Lura lands experientially and in terms of gameplay, but not really narratively. And here's the upshot. Blizzard, it is not about the size of the threat canonically. It is about how real that threat feels whenever we actually play the game. And do you know what would help? Characters who actually cared about these obvious threats in a way that felt credible. Characters need to have their brains. Here's one.
Make characters smart again?
Where are Illyria and Turalyon? Who knows? I certainly have theories, but do you know who should really be at least a little concerned? Their son, Arator. Especially since we just dumped a pile of magic stuff into the giant void well that his parents went for a swim in. Maybe he should have asked someone about it, or at least expressed the slightest bit of worry about the status of his parents.
Sitting there,
people
smiling.
Who, yes, he does have a complicated relationship with, but who he clearly does care about and does want to connect with. Literally, he does not mention this. And it's his goddamn parents. Now, in the stay a while and listen scene with Ramath and Umbric, they seem a little bit clueless. They know that Xal'atath went into the well with all of her host, and they suggest that the World Soul has something to do with it. But it's not real dialogue. It's a little bit of a condescending hint to the player, a bit of a wink wink nudge nudge that's using those characters as, I guess, a bit of a meat puppet to wink at the player. But it doesn't really serve those particular characters. Two very intelligent and driven magisters. Now,
Right.
I would love to sit and call characters stupid, but there is a real issue here, and that is managing player knowledge and character knowledge. This is actually really hard to do in just about any bit of media, really, especially a big one like WoW. And what I mean by that is that loads of us know about ley lines in the World Soul. Most of us know that Xal'atath is heading for the World Core to do something to or with Azeroth.
Right.
And we know there's a Titan manifold across the planet and all of that stuff. We also know Iridikron is waiting in the wings for the Titan's return.
True.
So even just
mentioned
using
that
what's
earlier.
happened in-game, it is actually clear that everything is converging, right? It is clear that what they're trying to do with World Soul Saga is moving forward and happening. But that's just us. The people in the actual World of Warcraft, the characters, well, they don't have all the pieces. Let me spell that out. So the Blood Elves know the Sunwell is connected to the ley lines.
Yeah.
Dagran is the one who knows about the Manifold, and most of our main characters know something about the Radiant Song and about Azeroth. But if Romath thinks the World Soul is possibly under attack by Xal'atath, it would make a lot of sense if he did more, just a little bit more, than whisper that to Umbric. I mean, at least tell Arator, because it's probably where his parents ended up. Things like this. Maybe,
Yeah,
we could
true.
take the threat a little bit more seriously if the characters in the world seemed to care. Not just emote saying, oh, this is very important and we care, but no, actually go through the actions of caring, which would involve acting on the knowledge they have, and doing so in the context of the relationships that they have, and the characters that are here. It's just that one with Arator seemingly not even mentioning his parents, even though...
Hey, guys, like, fuck, they disappeared for 1,000 years of war. I could deal with them disappeared for a little bit longer. Maybe he's relieved. Maybe he's like, my God, my parents were fucking weird. I'm glad those guys are gone. Could be the case. I did think it was a little bit weird, though, that, yeah, he didn't mention them at all. Yeah, he makes a good point.
they've just fallen into a big spooky pit, not even seeming to care. That just makes the whole thing feel like artifice. But sadly, we don't have time for that. We need to go on to the next patch after that, and then probably go to the Troll Island for our next big patch. And I think that's just why the world ends up feeling hollow, and Blizzard have got themselves in this rough situation. I mentioned how the game is saccharine and, feels a bit too sugary earlier on. It's almost a little bit like Blizzard's got hooked in sugar. And by sugar, I just mean lots of content very, very fast. To keep their addiction fed, they just need to eat more and more and more and more and consume more and more. And that's almost what it can feel like with World of Warcraft's content cadence these days. It is amazing how we're getting so much. But when it ends up just turning into what we mentioned earlier, the non-event, well, it's no wonder that even though something is canonically huge for the Warcraft universe, that people don't give a shit about it. And with that reinforcing the non-event, I mean, it's no surprise that whenever a big thing happens in WoW, people just don't care as much as they used to.
Yeah,
and
true.
believe you me, they used to. I was there for it. They did. It does not hit like it did back then.
Man, Wrath of the Lich King, those moments hit massively because that was such a big buildup. I mean, Arthas and his story and everything. It's a massive part of the game long before World of Warcraft even started. It was a Warcraft story. And it was a big buildup. Everybody knew he was there. Going to Northrend, everyone knew it was going to happen. And then the fight itself's a big deal. He actually kills us in that fight. He does feel very threatening. And in the end, he wins. Or he loses. He wins and then he loses. And, Father shows up, big cutscene, amazing moment. It was great. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be like a super long in terms of how long you tell the story for. You just need those big moments that really nail it. I'll be honest, probably one of the best things Blizzard's done in the Midnight expansion is describe light blindness. Going light blind and all that other shit that has to do with that. That feels like a threat. And one reason why I'm really into that whole light blind storyline is because that Arator cinematic was so freaking badass. And it really did make you feel like the power of light blindness, and it puts you in that moment of somebody that goes light blind and his reaction to it and everything after it happens. Like he's kind of confused and he's a little bit afraid, like what the fuck just went down. that was such a big moment, and I feel like Blizzard's done a really good job of kind of laying out what light blindness is and why it could be dangerous. They've done a better job with that than they have with the Sunwell, and why the Sunwell being corrupted would be a dangerous thing. So I think, like I said, that cinematic is what, like fucking 2 minutes? But just that moment of really nailing that part of the story down for us, it's big. And then they describe it a little bit more in the Eretor cinematic. We get the whole Black Rock Mountain fight. We see that little cutscene with his dad and how he went light blind there. They've done a good job of kind of laying that out over and over for us. Whereas some of the other parts of the story just like told to us, like, oh yeah, real quick, Sunwell's oh, we could uncorrupt it. Okay, good, we did. Done.
And while there's always been a lot of nitpicking going on with WoW's lore, it is a bunch of the stuff that I've covered in this video that does actually hit different these days, and in a way that is, I don't want to say unique, but is certainly to do with how modern WoW is made. So, there's been an explosive reaction to all this stuff, naturally. I mean, this is a familiar page in the WoW playbook. The Oathstones left in Dragonflight, then Belladar and the Black Flood from the War Within. All stories that Blizzard...
Wait a minute, what the hell happened with Belladar? Weren't we supposed to, like, get a raid to go in that thing? Or said, Jesus, we just left that crystal. There, he's right. What? Did we find out that thing was actually a Naru? I don't even remember. See, that's a problem. I don't even remember what happened with it. We just left it there. Maybe it'll become relevant again. I don't know. But that story completely left untied.
Ended in a big rush and moved on from, which doesn't exactly tell players that their investment in giving a shit about any of those things will be paid off. But Midnight's different in a bunch of ways. We know that, as an example,
it's like
Void Assaults are starting in the 0.5 patch, and that they'll escalate with new quests in the 0.7 patch. We know the Twilight's Blade feel betrayed by Xal'atath. Maybe we'll have some defectors helping us out. And maybe the elves' tenuous agreements will be shattered by whatever happens on Atalutech. But even if that's all somewhat true, there's still a lot of people dissatisfied with the tone and the direction of the game right now. And right now is important, because right now is the thing people have invested their time and money into. It being weak, justified by something in the future, is quite simply not good enough anymore. Unsatisfaction with the tone and direction is totally valid, and so much of this is not on the actual lore. I want to be clear about that. It's not on the lore itself. It's on the execution of the story in the game.
I don't think the story's bad.
The story and the lore, well, those are two different things. Now, it's not the end of the world, considering how almost everything else in this game is a pretty damn stark improvement. I seriously do mean that. I've been enjoying Midnight a hell of a lot. But
yeah, agreed.
If I were Blizzard's narrative team, I'd go watch The Matrix, and I'd think about what their own red pill looks like. Hint. Buy Simulacra and Simulations, really good book. Have a think about it in relation to the work that you're doing. And if the blistering production schedule of this game means that there's just certain types of stories you can't pull off well, like what's happened with the Endgame 12.0 stuff, then maybe we need to dial back our ambition so that even if we get less, we get it executed to the level I know Blizzard are capable of. Because they've done it before.
They have.
This video is about wishing they'd be able to do it again. And a big part of this for me was that it's not the lore, it's the story. I think a lot of the lore is actually pretty neat.
I think the lore is good too.
Not all of it, though. But if you want to hear about the recent lore, what's actually going on in the game right now, what it means for the future, simply watch this video next. It will fill you right in.
Yeah, look, the story is not a problem. I think the story is, it's like if somebody had laid out the story for me and told me, like, this is what we're planning on doing, I would have said, great idea. If somebody tells me, hey, we're going to create this fellowship, and there's this ring that has to be destroyed because it's a corrupting force all over the world, and eventually it'll destroy the world and bring back the big bad who made the ring, and he'll rule over the world forever, I'd be like, yeah, sounds like a great story. But if they tell all that story in a fucking 1-hour YouTube video, it's not going to hit that hard as compared to a 9-hour movie, where everything gets to be told in great detail and everything. So, yeah, Blizzard's a bit of a victim of its own pace right now. I think so. I think the story's a victim of the pace a little bit right now. But in the end, let's be honest, if they nail it, with the Last Titan. And that expansion does it right, and we kind of lead into it correctly right now. I think we'll look back on the World Soul Saga and say that was a great story. That was some good lore. But right now, it does feel like we're in a bit of a rush to get there. That's all. So we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see what happens with Xal'atath, the Titans, everything. A lot of loose ends to be tied up still. So they still got time to do it right. We'll see. Overall, though, I agree with a lot of what Bellular said. Nice video from Bellular.